When you hear the word compassion, what does it mean? How do you define compassion?
Compassion is exactly what the word means. It comes from the Latin through the French. Com means together, passion to suffer. You suffer together with someone. In Romans, Paul wrote to the Romans, I think it's 15:12, and it says, rejoice with those who rejoice and grieve with those who grieve. So when somebody, or mourn with them, somebody has a death in the family, they mourn. So the way you have compassion for them, you mourn too. Oh, your mother has died. Oh, you feel the same that he or she felt when her mother died. So that's compassion. You feel together with them.
Peter, how would you define compassion?
Well, I think it's an outgoing concern for others, particularly that are less fortunate, but a concern that results in action to help that and contribute to the help of that person or people.
Yeah.
Compassion to me is seeing somebody down and out and you can just wrap them in your arms. To be so compassionate that you can just give them love, hope, food, money. Just, yeah, that's how I term the word compassionate.
It's to I guess see a situation that somebody is in, and to sympathise with them, whatever it may be, to understand the grief they're going through or whatever it is. But then, as well as that, you have that feeling, but then to turn that feeling into action, to kind of do something to help them in your power, whatever it may be, something minute, to just make a little difference. And you don't know how that showing that compassion in the smallest amount can really affect somebody's life. And even whilst doing it yourself, you can feel so mundane. But to others, it's golden.
I think of compassion as being a care for the lowest and the least among the human family. And then I'd need to go one step further and say more than just a care for, but an implementation of that care. That is an activating of that care. So something is done to raise the lot and to lift the level of those who live in conditions that are unknown to most of us in life. To me, that's compassion. Caring and doing for the least of our human brothers and sisters.
What comes to mind is compassion is about caring for someone or being concerned. Yeah. So that's the word that comes to my mind. To be compassionate is to be concerned about someone's life and someone's suffering. And, yeah.
Well, compassion is something I've tried to grow in myself throughout my life, but the thing that I believe that's probably helped me more is to try to understand the heart of God about different things, because God has such a greater capacity than any one of us myself to have compassion, and I kind of have to learn that through learning more about God and how He sees things. And I feel like sometimes it requires that we get close to something before it really can affect us, and so that's for me how compassion can be developed. Have more empathy for individuals and their circumstances, and to get close to them, to understand God's heart for them, and take time to try to understand what's really going on inside of them, listen to them, and from there, let that affect us deeply enough to where it compels us to do something.
What's the most compassionate thing that you've seen or experienced or even done yourself?
Most compassionate. We spoke a bit about this earlier on today. And there's been many occasions with our ever-increasing drug addiction in this world. There's been so many families torn apart. So I've had 2 cases in the last fortnight where that's actually happened. Yeah, just so close to my heart. I don't know what to say about that. You know, offering him somewhere to live and giving him some hope, giving the parents some hope that these children aren't directly destroying the relationship with the father and the son or the daughter, but that they've actually got an addiction, that they'll do whatever it takes to get a fix. Yeah, so I mean...
and you're talking about somebody who actually steps into that world from outside to help.
Yes, yeah, yeah. So we've done that several times, but to what level? I mean, I'm not equipped to do that. I can only do so much and offer support where I can and direction on where they can get support. But I don't have an answer for it.
You know, my mother was a nurse. You know, she genuinely had compassion for the people she served, and you know, for us when things weren't going well, and just taking time to listen, to understand. You know, to try to find a way to solve the situation, but most of the time, just it's interesting that a lot of times it just required a little time to listen and feel the pain a little bit, and then many examples. But my mother would probably be the one that gives me the greatest personal sense of compassion.
Well, I'd have to say I've seen many compassionate acts, or read of many compassionate acts in stories, much more so than I've actually been blessed, I guess, to be present at. I mean, there's been many small acts of compassion that I've received myself during my life, many small acts, no great dramatic thing, I guess.
My mother certainly demonstrated compassion in many ways, serving people in our community in the farm country of Oklahoma. And your phrasing of the question at one point seemed to ask what's the most compassionate thing I've ever done. And John, I compared not only to my mother but to Mother Teresa and many others, I'm afraid I'd have to say my compassion has been severely lacking. And I'm afraid I don't have a lot to report. I hope that the years to come will give me an opportunity to develop and express compassion much more than I have in my life to this point.
Well, I've seen some different things and only hearing things in the last few months. Not directly that I've experienced, somebody I've just known. And to elevate above their experience with this person and their past, you know, as bumpy it might have been, to come back in a spot of illness for this particular person, to realise, you know, that there's a need there for care. The spouses, you know, that separated, to come back and to understand, to see the need that they need to step up, despite the differences, and care for little ones and children in a time of need and sickness.
To be specific, because there are a lot of compassion things that we have done right away since we were young, taking care of the elderly and taking care of the young ones that we have. And because we came from a background that the war was almost everywhere and suffering were almost everywhere, so it took us as Christians to take concern. Despite of your own suffering, you'll try to look at your neighbor and you see whether they are working properly, whether they have food to eat, how are they moving, are the children going to school, and yeah. So in the journey of life, we've been so compassionate. Especially me, I've been doing helping elderly people. I've been trying to put them in prayer, put them in thought, and visit the sick and be with them, see what exactly do they need, and And if I can afford, I can do. If I cannot, yeah.
I would say that God has been very compassionate with me. He saved me. When I think back, long before I knew anything about God, but when I think back now, He saved me from so many things. He kept me alive, he kept me out of trouble spots. I could have done things that would have really hurt me and my family, and I didn't do them, and I give Him the credit for that. So He had compassion on me, and I'm learning from Him. I never used to have compassion for anyone. That wasn't a done thing when I was a boy, but I do have now.